It began with a knock at the door and ended in a shallow grave behind a friendly house. On the evening of October 21st, 2009, in the small Missouri town of St. Martin's, 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten walked home as she had many times before. But this time, at dusk, something unseen waited. The streetlights flickered, the world seemed normal, and yet inside 4 houses down, a teen girl was writing in her journal, "I just killed someone." It was amazing. Elizabeth lived in a quiet neighborhood, the youngest child in her family, a child with dreams of teaching or being a veterinarian. She trusted the world around her. That trust would prove deadly. Across the street, 15-year-old Alyssa Bustamante lived with her grandparents in the same small community. At first glance, she was like other teens, attending church, going to school, living a seemingly ordinary life. But beneath the surface lurked something far darker. Over time, she began recording violent thoughts in diaries, posting online about cutting and killing people, and craving a feeling she could not yet name. That night, Alyssa convinced her younger sister to ring the doorbell at Elizabeth's home and ask her to come out and play. Trustingly, Elizabeth left her house, unaware of the trap formed innocently in daylight. As the evening deepened, the two walked into the woods behind Alyssa's house, a place Elizabeth had walked past countless times, never thinking danger could hide there. The trees closed in, shadows lengthened, and the silence swallowed the laughter that once might have echoed. Alyssa, quiet, watched while the moment flickered. Then the act. Elizabeth was strangled, her throat cut, stabbed multiple times, a violent crescendo written ahead of time. Within days, investigators would find a shallow grave Alyssa had dug a week prior, leaves haphazardly covering it, a place where a child's life ended in monstrous cruelty. For Elizabeth's family, the phone never rang that night with a return home. The bed remained untouched, the normal pattern of childhood shattered. As the world around them carried on, their hearts fractured in silence. In the hours that followed, law enforcement arrived. The search began, but what they would uncover, the confession, the motive, the chilling diary entries, would forever alter the story of what it meant to live in a neighborhood that seemed safe. By the end of this first hour of the tale, you'll understand how trust can turn into betrayal, the ordinary into horror, and the simple walk home into a path to death. It started with a diary entry that should have remained secret. Instead, it became the key that unlocked the darkness. In the quiet neighborhood of St. Martin's, Missouri, just a few houses down from Elizabeth's home, lived the teen girl who would shatter everything. Her name was Alyssa Bustamante, aged 15. She appeared ordinary, good grades, church attendance, friends like any teenager. But beneath her veneer, something else was brewing. According to investigators, Alyssa had dug not one but 2 shallow graves in the woods behind her house, days before the crime. Night of October 21st, 2009. Elizabeth, age 9, was invited by Alyssa's younger sister to come outside and play. The neighborhood seemed safe, one more evening of innocence. But when Elizabeth stepped into the path that Alyssa had prepared, the routine ended and horror began. Investigators later revealed that Alyssa lured Elizabeth into the woods behind her house, then committed the unthinkable. She strangled the child, slit her throat, and stabbed her multiple times. Elizabeth's body was then buried in the shallow grave that Alyssa had prepared earlier, concealed beneath leaves and brush. When police confronted Alyssa, they found disturbing documentation. A diary entry read, "I just killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throat and stabbed them, now they're dead. I don't know how to feel ATM." It was amazing. The evidence mounted. her diaries, her online social media where she listed killing people as a hobby, the graves she dug ahead of time. The plan was cold, calculated, and executed with precision. In court, a Missouri State Highway Patrol sergeant testified that Alyssa said she wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. For Elizabeth's family, the horror deepened. The search for her turned into the worst possible truth. Their little girl was dead. The simplicity of a walk home transformed into a nightmare. For the community, the shock was profound. A teenager, a girl next door, committing murder out of curiosity in broad daylight. The investigation did not move slowly. Authorities quickly issued an adult indictment against Alyssa, charging her with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. The indictment detailed how Alyssa, after planning, acting, and hiding the evidence, tried to maintain appearances, attending school the next few days, living a facade of normalcy. Yet, even as the law moved, the questions lingered. How did someone so young develop murderous ideation? What failings allowed the planning and violence to occur? Why was a neighbor child so vulnerable? For viewers, the chilling idea arises that evil can wear the face of a teenager, walk the same streets, play the same games. As we reach the end of part 2, the tension builds. The act has occurred, the investigation ignites, but the full weight of motive and consequence still hangs in the air. The next part will dive into the legal aftermath, the trial, the sentencing, and the ripple effects of this crime on a family, a town, and the state of Missouri. Stay with us, because what happens next raises the stakes and reveals the full horror of what one mind can plan and one life can lose. She walked into the courtroom with her hands cuffed, her head down, but her words would haunt everyone who listened. When investigators finished collecting evidence from the woods and Alyssa's diary, the full horror of what had happened in St. Martin's came into focus. The killer wasn't a stranger, an adult, or a faceless monster. It was a teenage girl who had planned everything days before, then returned to her routine as if nothing had happened. Alyssa Bustamante was charged as an adult with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. The decision shocked many. She was only 15, but prosecutors said the level of planning, the brutality, and her lack of remorse demanded adult accountability. The courtroom filled with quiet dread as details emerged. The graves dug days earlier, the violent methods of the attack, the diary entries celebrating the act. Psychological evaluations revealed that Alyssa had a history of self-harm and depression. Her biological mother had severe substance abuse issues. Her father was in prison. She had once attempted suicide and had been taking antidepressants. Yet, according to experts, she still showed clear comprehension of her actions and the consequences. She was not insane. She was deliberate. During her interrogation, Alyssa spoke calmly, even smiling at times. When asked why she had done it, she said she wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. She described the experience as pretty amazing. These words echoed across the courtroom later, freezing everyone in disbelief. The press would soon label her the teen who killed for curiosity. Elizabeth's mother sat in court, holding a small photograph of her daughter, smiling, bright-eyed, full of innocence. Her tears weren't loud, but they carried the weight of an entire family's devastation. Every word from the prosecutor seemed to tear open wounds that would never heal. She murdered a child for thrill, the prosecutor said, and wrote about it like it was entertainment. As the trial progressed, Alyssa's defense tried to reduce the charge from first-degree to second-degree murder, arguing that her mental state and history of trauma clouded her judgment. The prosecution pushed back fiercely, painting a picture of a calculated act, premeditated and cold. The jury saw the photographs from the crime scene, the written confession, and heard how she'd invited Elizabeth into the woods with a lie. Then came the moment that silenced the courtroom. The prosecutor read from Alyssa's diary, the page after her confession. The same entry where she wrote, "It was amazing." Just below those words, she had written, "Now I have to go to church." LOL. The crowd gasped. It wasn't just the act, it was the casualness that followed. The line blurred between human and horrid. In the end, faced with overwhelming evidence, Alyssa accepted a plea deal in 2012, pleading guilty to second-degree murder and armed criminal action. The sentence: life in prison with the possibility of parole after 35 years. But no sentence could erase the question that haunted everyone who followed the case. How does a 15-year-old girl reach a place so dark that she can kill an innocent child just to feel something? As the courtroom emptied, Elizabeth's mother said through tears, "We'll never get her back, but we got justice." Yet, justice felt cold. For a family that lost everything, and a community that would never look at a friendly face the same way again, the question remained: what makes a child become a killer? Justice may have spoken, but peace never came. When the sentence was read aloud, the courtroom was silent. 15-year-old Alyssa Bustamante, now convicted murderer, was led away in shackles, her eyes empty, her lips expressionless. The metal doors closed behind her, but the echoes of her crime would never fade from St. Martin's. For Elizabeth Olten's family, justice was only a word. The house where Elizabeth once played grew quieter with each passing season. Her mother kept her room just as it was: the pink bedspread, the stuffed animals, the photos from school. Every morning began with memory, and every night ended with questions that had no answers. In the years that followed, reporters revisited the case again and again, searching for meaning in the madness. Experts debated whether Alyssa was a product of her upbringing or a chilling example of how evil can exist even in youth. Psychologists dissected her journals, filled with darkness, pain, and a desperate hunger to feel anything. One line stood out: "Other people cry when they're sad. I cut myself." It was a window into a mind that had been eroding long before Elizabeth's murder. Inside prison, Alyssa's world became smaller. Letters revealed a life of isolation and reflection, but little remorse. She would later appeal her sentence, claiming her mental health was mishandled during interrogation, but the court upheld the ruling. There would be no release, no redemption. She will be eligible for parole only after 35 years, when she's in her 50s. Meanwhile, Elizabeth's family turned their pain into purpose. Her mother began speaking publicly about child safety and awareness, telling parents, "We can't predict evil, but we can teach caution." Memorial scholarships were created in Elizabeth's name, keeping her memory alive through the lives of other children. The town itself changed. Parents no longer let kids walk home alone. The woods where the murder happened were cleared, then fenced off, a silent monument to what was lost. Neighbors who once trusted each other now double-locked their doors. Even today, the case of Elizabeth Olten forces people to confront a haunting truth. Monsters don't always hide in the dark. They sometimes smile next door. The story leaves behind a scar deeper than fear. It's a reminder that innocence can vanish in a moment, that evil can wear the face of youth, and that the line between pain and cruelty can be terrifyingly thin. In the end, Elizabeth's story is not just about death, but about the fragility of childhood, the failures of awareness, and the endless question of why. She was a girl who loved laughter, pink clothes, and her family. A girl whose life was stolen by curiosity turned lethal. And as you finish this story, remember, safety isn't always about locking doors. It's about knowing that sometimes danger wears a smile. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel using the link below.